Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Beit Midrash. Hope everyone's doing well and feeling good and having a great day. A couple people are in the midst of traveling here, so looking forward to your contributions as long as you can. But good to see y'all and good to learn with y'all as we're closing in on the end of the Torah, which means the end of Rabbi Sacks's book. What do we do next? I don't know. I put it in the email, so if you didn't get the email, or if you got the email and need to check it out again, let me know what your thoughts are. I'd be curious to see what y'all think. But we'll go ahead and get started as a Parshat Kitetse, social capital and fallen donkeys. One to we'll start opening it up. If anybody had any thoughts, comments, reactions to start with, and then we can dive in a little deeper, something individually. Yes, Laura.
Okay, so I was wondering if, you hear a lot of the love your enemy quote, and is that a misquote or a mistranslation of the Hebrew? Is it help your enemy and not really love your enemy? I want to know so I can, correct some.
So I don't think love your enemy, definitely, I don't think comes from this parsha. I'm trying to think if it comes elsewhere. Off the top of my head, I don't think love your enemy comes in the Torah itself, as far as I remember.
You're right. He mentions that it's the sages discuss the precise relationship between this command and the similar but different one in Exodus. If you see, and that's the one where it says help in Exodus, and
Yeah.
the love your one is different.
Yeah.
That's page 276.
Yeah, I think I was looking for it while you were talking, and as you said it, I like, oh, there it is. As you so, yeah, I don't think love your enemy is as much in the Torah. I think that's a different development. And we can't hear you for some reason. It doesn't say you're muted, but I can't hear you.
Now she can.
So you might want to try adding it to the chat. I don't know why your microphone might not be working. But he does say on 276 that there's an inclination when you see somebody, you don't like who's struggling. You might your inclination is to not help them because you don't like them. You don't want to help them. And what Rabbi Sacks is arguing is Torah's directing you to fight against that inclination and to say, okay, you might not like them, but help them anyway. Overcome the inclination, as he says, and may help. That is, it may help end the animosity and turn an enemy into a friend. There's variants on this story, but Rabbi David Hartman tells the story as well of walking down the streets of Jerusalem, and there was a guy with his car with a broken down car on the side of the road, and as he was walking by, there were a bunch of yeshiva students debating on the side of the road. Should we help him or not? They're like, well, on one hand, we should help him because it's a Jew, but on the other hand, look at his kippah. Is he really an Orthodox Jew? Not an Orthodox Jew. Do we really have the obligation to help him? And they were going back and forth debating with each other whether or not they should help him and whether he's really in and therefore would help. And Rabbi Hartman kind of looked at them and said, "This is ridiculous." Like, I don't know if he said anything directly to them, but kind of just walked over and started helping the guy with whatever he needed. He's like, somebody needs help, you help them. It doesn't matter if they're in your Orthodox group or not. You just help them. Yes, Margaret.
I think this is a very important teaching. But on the other hand, it's very vague.
Very what?
Very vague about what you need to do. What you need to do to help somebody. If you need to help them with their car or give a starving person, enough money for the day's food or, for that sort of thing. On the other hand, there are bigger asks that you get from people that don't seem to me be covered by this teaching.
Yeah, the Torah is kind of famously short on details. The Torah doesn't give a lot of details generally. That's what the Talmud is for.
And
I have not looked at all the Talmudic discussions on this particular verse, but generally speaking, yes, you're supposed to help, and there are described limits as to what you are supposed to do. You're not supposed to make yourself poor to help a poor person, for example. If somebody needs $1,000 and you don't have $1,000 to give, you're not supposed to give them all your money so that they can be supported when you don't have the money to support yourself. So there are limits. The rabbis do say, like, generally, yes, there are things you should do, and there are limits by which they put on some of these topics to say where do you fall on the spectrum. And the one that comes to mind is in terms of returning someone's lost animal. There's an obligation to return their lost animal, and you're actually obligated to care for the animal in the meantime. Unless it's either beneath your dignity to do so, or you're elderly and unable to do so, in which case you don't have that same obligation to do. So, those are kinds of the ideas that the rabbis start to play with. I'd have to look more specifically on this particular verse to say what they say, but generally speaking, the obligation is you help them to the ability you are able to in that moment.
The concept I really liked in this part was in talking about the students who were passed by someone who needed help, and they were going to talk about the parable of the Good Samaritan or whatever, and they kept on going. And in one case, they were in a hurry because they were trying not to be late. So they were weighing what this person needs versus the people waiting for them. They also had needs. So it can be complicated.
Yes. The Torah puts it out very black and white. You see your enemy needing help, you help. The rabbis recognize that the world is very rarely so black and white, and that it's usually much more complicated than that. And they try to give you some guidelines. It's a lot of what the Talmud does, is try to give, great, how does this actually play out into reality that is not so simple? And how do we now live our lives based on that?
Well, Rabbi, I just don't think I can believe what it's stated here, that all things being equal, if there's a choice between helping an enemy and helping a friend, helping an enemy takes precedence since it would overcome the inclination. Well, I think I told you that we were in Normandy last week, and if you're just thinking of being on the beach and there's a fallen German soldier there and there's a fallen American soldier that is your friend, and both are close to dying, are you going to help your friend, or are you going to help the German, your enemy? I think you're going to help your friend in that situation. It may be quite laudable to think about helping both, but I think helping your enemy in that situation is not real.
Maybe not. I think, war is usually a somewhat different category in and of itself. But that being said, in terms of saving a life, you have the obligation to save the life that you are more likely to be able to save. So in that case, if there's a German soldier who is moderately wounded and a French soldier who is severely wounded, who you are less likely going to be able to save the latter's life, you'd actually still have, I think, the obligation to save the German's life if you had a better possibility of being able to do so. In that, if you can only help one person, you got to help the person you can more likely help.
Sure. Well, in that situation, it's not equal, like it was stated there.
Right. So,
Okay.
Would it matter if one was Jewish?
Yes, Diane?
okay, so I imagine everyone here knows the reports that when Gilad Shalit was released back to the Israelis released 1,000 Palestinians who were being held. Right? They were accused of planning activities against Israel. And of those 1,000, one of them became the mastermind of October the 7th. When he was in the Israeli prison, he was diagnosed with cancer. The Israeli doctors provided care and saved his life. And the repayment, if you can call it such, but the end result is he was the mastermind behind October the 7th. And I can't help but wonder if the rabbis might not reteach this lesson or give some wiggle room now that we have experienced the tragedy of last October.
I would say no.
Okay.
You could, in the moment, you don't know what is actually going to happen after that moment. So, saving his life in the moment was the right choice, regardless of what he would have done in the future, because they didn't know what he would have done in the future.
Do you think that colors this? I mean, I hate to get off the track of the Parsha, but do you think that experience colors where Israel stands on the ceasefire that seems to be so elusive?
So, one, I don't think that this really has anything to do with what Rabbi Sacks is talking about. Two, no, I don't think that's what's coloring the Israeli mindset. I think the mindset is more that, Hamas is the one who has initiated pretty much breaking every ceasefire that they have ever had. So how can we trust the next ceasefire will hold? It'll hold until they decide it doesn't hold it. So, I think that's a completely different issue altogether. And I'm not sure how far down this rabbit hole I will really want to go, because it's kind of not necessarily related to what Rabbi Sacks is discussing. One other thing I want to add is, so you guys have so far brought up the Nazis and Hamas. And I'm not sure that's what Rabbi Sacks is really targeting here. Rabbi Sacks, I think, is trying to help us as everyday normal Jews figure out how to live a better, more meaningful life. Yes, if you want to go to the extremes, you can always go to the extremes, and the extremes are always going to be a little more challenging. And to some extent, that's what the Talmud likes to do. The Talmud likes to say, okay, you think this is true? Let's see how far we can push this to make it, is it still true in this extreme circumstance? You say, using one of my favorite examples, you say the wall of a sukkah is valid as long as it's doesn't move in the wind and it's a certain height. Well, then what about an elephant? Does an elephant qualify for a wall of a sukkah? That's pushing to an extreme situation. The answer, by the way, is technically yes, practically no. You really don't want an elephant as a wall of your sukkah because they smell. Once they poop, you're not going to want to sit in your sukkah anymore. And, they do have the ability to walk away, which becomes a problem for your sukkah after. But it is one of my favorite discussions in the Talmud. Yes, Barbara Brand.
So this is Lynn. I agree with you. I almost think about last week's Parsha about relationships, and I think that's what Rabbi Sacks was trying to bring to our attention is our relationships with people, and that you don't judge a book by its cover. You have to get to know someone. You have to get to know if you've known them and they've been a wonderful friend, but they've done one wrong thing, then you don't call that. I think that's more what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think what he's generally trying to do is encourage us as normal everyday Jews how to live a more fulfilling and practically Jewish life.
It was Tuesday night.
The extreme situations are the extreme situations, but most of us are not dealing with the extreme situations.
I don't think that's right.
Barbara Brandy.
The point that I was going to make is that the sages can say this or that, but we have free will. So now we get back to Rabbi Sacks trying to give us guidance, the sages trying to give us guidance, but it still comes down to us. We have to make the decision. So he can say, yeah, there's more social capital in doing something for an enemy than it is for doing something for your friend. We do lots of things for people we don't know. We don't know their name. We don't know anything about them. We don't even know if they're our enemies. But it comes down to what's your underlying guideline, which is do what works for you and what seems right at the time, because it's our choice to make. So he can't tell you, yeah, or the sages, which of course were he's, but they can't tell you. It's not a recipe book. It's not do this, do this, do this, do this, and then that happens. And free will, as far as I know, isn't mentioned anywhere in this chapter. It's still your decision, which is why Sacks ends with do the right thing, make sure that you take into consideration what you could have done.
Yeah. Ultimately, yes, we always do free will. We always have the choice to make of whether we're going to follow halacha or not. But yes, I think you look at his conclusion and what the actual life-changing idea is. It doesn't say prioritize an enemy over a friend. It doesn't say who you should help. It says notice the people around you who are in need of help and be willing to help them. That's the conclusion, not who to prioritize and when to prioritize who. It's don't be rushing so much through life that you don't notice that the people who could use your help. that's an important, perhaps that's the more important idea generally. Yes.
That brings me to another one of his of the things that Sacks points out, and that is, I've seen the study that says religious people are more giving, whether it's money, whether it's this, whether it's that. But my thinking about that is that perhaps people who regularly attend worship services hear more about needs, hear more about more opportunities when it comes to joining a meal chain for someone, or knowing, what needs to be given in terms of this time or that money. So maybe exposure to suggestions and different opportunities happens greatly, ones that you're going to pay attention to or hear more frequently when you're in attending a house of worship. I think those are his words. Then getting that letter from in the mail, that junk mail that says, give here, give there, for $19.95 a month, you can do this, you can do that. So there may be other reasons why religious communities are good at charity than the fact that they're religious. It may be because they're communities.
I mean, that's essentially his argument. Religion creates community, community creates altruism, and altruism turns us away from the self and towards the common good. That's towards the top of 278. That's kind of his argument, is that when you're in a religious community, when you attend regularly, you become part of a larger community. And being part of a larger community necessarily means it's less about you and more about the broader group. And how can you best help them? So I'm not sure you're necessarily disagreeing.
It's not my intention in life to always disagree with Rabbi Sacks. I mean, and I won't say, no, I didn't read that line. I just accidentally used the word community. That's one of his words. It's there. But I think that being at services or being part of the people who go to services, it just affords you so many more opportunities to know where the needs are. Whether you like those people or not, whether you feel, no, they sit on the other side of the aisle, I'm not part of their community, they don't want me sitting over there. So enough.
Yes, Margaret.
Barbara, I think Rabbi Sacks cherry picked Putnam's argument a little bit, because I've read a good deal of it, and he does say pretty much what you are saying. He comes around to saying what you are saying.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
The participation in the community, specifically a religious community.
Thank you.
Yes, Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, his idea about not rushing through life really reminds me that I'm retired. I think a lot of people on this call are retired. And I think when you're retired, you have more time. You can live life at a slower pace. And as you're living life, when things occur, people in need, you don't feel like you have to rush through to make your next meeting. You can stop and help people. So I think it's really a big value of being retired to be able to take advantage of that.
Stuart, I needed you to change my tire 3 weeks ago, but you were away. That's the problem with being retired. You're always off somewhere traveling.
Well, I'm also not very knowledgeable about that.
Okay,
Okay.
You'd have given me your AAA number and told me to use my card, right?
All right, I can do that.
Rabbi, is Rabbi Sacks's commentary a little bit out of context? Because am I right that at the end of this parsha, there's a mention that there is a mitzvah to destroy Amalek, and that while many of vote in this parsha are about doing the act within the quality of mercy and goodness, that there are times in our lives when we must act otherwise.
So, there's an interesting parallel dichotomy. The Torah in this parsha does talk about, Ammon and Moab, how they are never allowed to come into be part of the Israelite community because they would not provide food or water while our ancestors were in the wilderness, and in fact threatened us with the sword if we were to try. Amalek is supposed to be completely wiped out. But there's also an interesting line in there about Edom and Egypt. It says, you shall not abhor the Edomites and the Egyptians. The Edomites, because they're your relatives, they're your family. And the Egyptians, it says, because you were a stranger in their land. A little bit of a spoiler alert for perhaps my sermon this week, but when Edom is not particularly good to the Israelites throughout history. There's a lot of tension between Israel and Edom throughout biblical history. They eventually get wiped out. Edom does. But if you were to think there's anybody we should hate in Jewish history, it'd be the Egyptians. Right? They enslaved us for 400 years. They tried an act of genocide, of drowning all of our males, and yet we are told not to abhor them. Why? If you get into the commentaries, they all say, Rashi, amongst others, says, because when we needed them, they were there for us. When there was a famine in Canaan and Jacob and his children needed food, Egypt provided it. So there's a level at which there are people who have never done anything good to us, and there are people who have actively fought us, people who have actively hated us, and never lent us a hand in any way, shape, or form. That's Ammon, that's Moab, that's Amalek. But there are people, and there are people who might have been our enemies, but might have not always been our enemies. And we're supposed to not forget the kindnesses that they had shown, even when we might not be friendly with them now. At least that's how Rashi and a few other commentators tend to understand this mitzvah against Egypt. Does that answer your question, Lynn?
I
Yeah.
just went back to look. Oh, I'm sorry, Lynn.
That's okay. Yeah, thank
I just went back to look it up, and it says don't blot the memory. It doesn't say, or at least that's what this translates. It doesn't
don't
say,
forget to blot out the memory.
yeah. Oh. Well, it says you shall blot out the memory of Amalek.
But later it says don't forget. Yes.
Yeah, don't forget. So it doesn't say get rid of them. It's like everything else. Remember what happened to you so that you can learn from it and move on productively. So what Lynn said surprised me a little bit.
I mean, there is a little bit of an there's been a lot of writing on this. I'm not going to go too deep into it. There is an odd thing that how do you not forget to blot out somebody's memory? If you blot out their memory, you can't remember them because the memory's gone. So, how do you not forget? I think some of the commentary tends to look at Amalek as kind of this eternal force of evil in the world that we should be striving to blot out and fight against, but somewhat questionably whether we will ever be able to fully succeed in doing it. So we should not forget to be working towards this goal that probably will never be accomplished.
Well, the common dictum, perhaps related more recently, is the enemy of your enemy is your friend. And of course, you never know. I mean, the Egyptians, we hated the Egyptians, they hated us way back then. Today, we're trying to work with the Egyptians to create a peace. So you just never know how things will change, circumstances will change, right?
Yeah. The world is an ever-evolving process. So, we just have to some extent, we have to change along with it and be willing to keep sticking around and working along with it. Yes, Ellen.
I was just going to say that I have trouble fitting my life into some of the sets that have been established. Since I live downtown and cannot go a half a block, it seems, some evenings, without finding beggars on the street. And I know because I have friends who have baked breads to keep in the car to be able to distribute to people who stop you when you stop for the stop sign. That doesn't seem to work in any kind of, first of all, the result of this particular individual's experiment was they simply went and sold the bread and bought what they really wanted, which was nothing good. And they had already had too much of. So, and it's such a failure of our system of taking care of those who have obvious, measurable, dangerous needs that a single person can't hope to really touch in a meaningful way unless by working for a mental health association or tackling a very large problem from a different angle. It makes me very sad to say that I've had people, one in Europe, in the Bethel congregation for sure, who said, "What do you think you're proving by living downtown?" And my short answer is simply, I don't think we can ever get along. We've been trying for the 300 or 400 years, and we, as a majority, do not want Black people to be a part of our world here in Alabama. And I don't see how you can judge unless you get close.
So, you're bringing up two different topics here.
Mm-hmm.
Both of which I think tie in with the same. I don't think I don't think they're against what Rabbi Sacks is teaching. I think it just takes a different way towards it, which is, what's the first step of every 12-step program?
Thank God I don't know.
Admit you have a problem.
Good. Admit that there's a problem. You have to admit that you have a problem. Once you admit you have a problem, then you can work to make it better. But until if you don't think there's a problem, then there's nothing to work on because there's no problem to solve. What you just said is the first step of admitting that there are two problems. And now the next question is you started to address, or at least brought up, is, there's a limit to maybe how much we can really do on an individual level, right? There are so many people on the streets of Birmingham that need help that any one of us can't help all of them. But maybe we can work together. Maybe we can work with the city government. Maybe we can work with nonprofit organizations. Maybe we can build together coalitions that might be able to help the problems. You're right. You on your own are not going to get every homeless person on the streets of Birmingham off the street. I think you'd be what's the word?
Naive.
I was gonna say sanctified, but I can't remember what the Catholic word is for it. Not sanctified. There's a word when somebody becomes a saint. I can't think of what it is. But you'd be declared a saint of Birmingham if you were able to do that. But it's not a realistic goal. So what can you do to help the situation so that there are fewer on the streets? Who can you talk to that would help make it better for them and help them get healthy and lead better lives? That's not against, it's a bigger question than what I think Rabbi Sacks intimates, but I think it's a natural progression of what he says, is that you're stopping to notice that there's a problem and that there are people in need. You can't help all of them. So what can you do? And that's a different question. Margaret, you were going to say something.
Three different things. Number one, I think, Ellen, that I think you are helping the problem by living downtown. I mean, helping the solution. I'm sorry, helping the solution.
We thought other people would follow.
By living downtown.
We built this 20 years ago, and older couples are beginning just to sprinkle to retire and come downtown instead of staying in Mountain Brook or Homewood.
And I'd be there if my grandchildren weren't if I weren't so close to my grandchildren. But number two, when I lived in Philadelphia, I don't know, officials, and I can't say exactly, mental health, whatever, social service people said, do not give money to the homeless people because it enables them not only to use drugs and alcohol, but also to stay homeless. And by not giving money, and instead give your money to the social service organizations. On the other hand, I've had friends who take, who would go downtown and they would have in their pocket X amount of dollars, and that would be their limit for the day. And they would give out, 5 $1 bills or 10 $5 bills or whatever their particular thing was. And then that was it for the day. So 2 different practical solutions or approaches to what you say.
I'm really sorry, Ellen, that someone told you, I'm sorry, Lunch. I'm very sorry, Lunch, that someone told, that someone from Bethel told you, what are you doing living downtown? Because pre-COVID, we were at a meeting at Bethel, an evening meeting at Bethel, and we came out the side door on 21st Way, and 2 homeless people approached us. There was a man and 2 women approached us, and I must admit, from the safety of my small town background, I knew exactly how to get out of the situation. I was a little bit concerned, but yeah, I did at that point take some dollars out of my pocket, as did the others, and probably gave the guy a total of less than $5. But that was $5 we shouldn't have had to give. So it's not only downtown. It happened at Bethel, at least that time, and I've heard of 2 other times.
Yeah, we have some who roam around that area. I'll also say, when I said I was told people that I was moving to Birmingham, Alabama, they kind of, especially my northern friends, gave a little scoff. But you don't like where something is, you don't like the way something is, it doesn't get better by walking away from it. It gets better by getting involved and working to make it better. But you can't do that from a distance. You have to be present to do that. So, somewhat different than what Barbara's saying, people want to question why you want to live downtown and what you're proving by living downtown. You don't have anything to prove. You want to see downtown be better, then move downtown and help make it better. Don't cry out against what's going on downtown from the suburbs.
I'm very stubborn. I'm not, yeah. But I am disappointed. At the same time, I can say that 15-year period since all of these restaurants across the street from me, at first, their clientele was primarily white. Within several years, it began to shift a little, and now you would think you were in some other state. Not always, but they're always Black. Nobody seems disturbed. No one seems excited about it. Mm-hmm. And I guess the other thing I consistently do is I generally smile and meet people who don't look like me as though I knew them.
Ellen, did I interrupt? I'm sorry. So Stuart and I moved into Forest Park, which at the time was not the hip place to live 40 plus years ago. And it was very diverse then, a lot of university people, a lot of people of moderate means, and it's near
Barbara, I missed
Forest Park. We live near Avondale Park. And so my takeaway from this conversation is we as Jews are very sensitive to stereotyping. And I think we as Jews should be sensitive to stereotyping homeless people and other people. And we have many stories. We've lived here decades now in the city of Birmingham, and we didn't do it to prove anything. We did it for ourselves. I think if we had to give a reason, may have been because it was affordable at the time. We didn't have a down payment. But also, I mean, we just love the history of a city, and we're in a historic area. And also we liked the diversity. We liked driving down the street and seeing a lot of different types of people, including homeless people. I have to say, I'm sad they're homeless. So I'll give you one example. We walk, I've seen you walking at Railroad Park or out at Railroad Park, Ellen, and we also walk quite a bit at Avondale Park. And there are people who say, why do you go to Avondale Park? And of course, now Avondale is becoming very hip. But when we go to Avondale Park, there's always regulars, what I call regular homeless people. They talk every time, never felt threatened one bit. tell you things that they've seen to take care of you. If they don't go over there, that man's been drinking. Okay. They know I'm out there with my camera. And we're kind of a little community. I used to walk between UAB and YWCA, which I was working at and on the board at the time. And there were homeless people under the viaduct, drug dealers under the viaduct. And, I mean, there are dangers. I'm sure I would have been more secure other places, but it's just part of a community that you accept differences, that you look for the positive. I just never saw these shadows people were talking about. Of course, we hear stories, and I want to tell you one just to counter some of the ones I'm sure you've heard. So recently, Stuart and I were in Avondale Park. He dropped he has a very flat front pocket wallet, and it must have dropped out. And we got home, and of course, it had his ID and money and things in it. He went back and looked everywhere he'd gone, and he came home and he said, I just can't find it. And he went ahead and started canceling his credit cards. And about an hour or two later, Stuart, the doorbell rings. And there's a man out there we've never seen. We see him on our little camera. And we open the door, and he's small, and he's bearded, and he has reddish hair, and he looks kind of frumped, but nice. And he said, hey, I was in Avondale Park, and I found your wallet. We thanked him a lot. And we tried to give him some money and whatever, and he started walking away. It was one of those 110-degree weather days, it felt like. And he started walking. I said, can I give you a ride somewhere? And he said, no, I like to walk. I said, well, where do you live around here? He said, no, I'm homeless. Now, again, this is the man that returned our wallet with everything in it. He had to find out where we lived. He didn't have a car. It was probably the nicest deed that I think I can think of that has happened to me personally or Stuart in a very long time. So I just think we do need to not lump everybody in, that everybody's looking for drugs and handouts. Some people have truly just learned to live on the streets because they don't have family, they don't want to live in a shelter, they don't have a drug problem. But I would say most of them have mental health problems of some sort. Right. And I love your place. I've ridden by your place. I think I've been in your place, Ellen, and it's beautiful. And just like you, and thank you for being part of a community downtown. I feel like I'm part of downtown, but
I like it a lot. Got friends up the street and down the street.
And it keeps growing. It keeps improving.
The main difference is they're all 4 decades younger than we are, at least.
Gotcha. Well, I just threw that in just so we can keep our balance in our head about who everybody's label is, right?
I like what you said, Alan. The place that I live has become much more diverse in the last year or so, but virtually everybody is something like 4 decades younger than I am. So, smiles, changing smiles is one thing, but that's about as far as it goes.
I have a space, a studio, and I'm building 1 block down the street with no telephone. And let's see, what was the point I wanted to make? I can think of 40. I'll have to come back for that one. I just don't remember.
Okay.
Any concluding thoughts for today?
Oh, I know what I was going to conclude.
Hear you yet?
I don't know. Can you hear me? Canonization was the word you were looking for, Rabbi.
Thank you.
To make or canonize the saint. I'm a fallen away Catholic. I should have been able to say it instantly. What I did like, what I took away from the thing, and the other point I wanted to make when I wasn't audible, is I think that love your enemy comes from the Christian New Testament. Mm-hmm. And that's just a hard pill to swallow. And I think Rabbi Sacks is so much more meaningful. You help the person who's your enemy, hoping that incrementally you'll change that person's way of thinking. But I also, what I really took away and which I really love is that you've got to have a community. And David Brooks talks about it all the time. The reason why we're in a world of trouble is because so many people are bowling alone. They don't have a community, and which helps gives them focus and gives them hope. So sorry I blurted in.
No, we could finally hear you.
I remember.
But to your point, yes, I think Rabbi Sacks says as well. Like the ethic of help your enemy is a principle that works, unlike love your enemy, which has never worked.
Yeah, and I love that never worked. Interesting, and I just wish he had expanded on that. And Barbara, before I go, I've got 2 books. This goes from your commentary last week.
Wow,
years ago, I took a class with Rabbi Elena in Scottsdale.
Alana Cantor.
Alana, and it was wonderful. But one of these books is The 5 Books of Miriam, a woman's commentary on the Torah. And the other one is the Torah, and the commentary is all by women. Wonderful. It's got poems. It's wonderful.
Thank you for mentioning that.
I think Jewish Lights might have another one that's called like a women's commentary to the Torah. I know they have a men's one. I think they have a women's one also. I can't remember who edited it. So.
Worthwhile, both of them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other concluding thoughts?
I remember, God, I was going to say that we have a new shop across in my building where the studio is. And after 3 or 4 days of looking at these beautiful displays in the window, I went in to say hello. And actually, I think Ben and I had him to dinner to see who this was. Looked like New York. And I realized that I had not seen anybody from the building in the new shop or talking to this young gentleman who was running it. And so I asked, he said, no, nobody said hello. And I thought, there are a bunch of people living in this building. Somebody should have said hello at some point. So I think they have. Now when I walk by, there are all kinds of people in there because it's beautiful and Birmingham's lucky to have it. We wouldn't want to lose it.
DK, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. Has anybody mentioned Wordsworth's quote in this book?
No.
I didn't do that today.
Well,
I saw it. I don't think we've discussed it.
I found it very moving. And it's the best portion of a good man's life. His little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. To me, that was worth the whole book. That's all. I just want to bring our attention to that lovely.
A good quote. Yes, absolutely. Anybody else? Any last thoughts?
It's a good thing, Rabbi. Good time to say what you tack on to our reminder. The little poems and statements.
I think we should all go out and consider what we're going to do to help today and tomorrow and the next week.
You only have to help one person. You don't have to help everybody.
But good, Eddie.
But to make a friend with somebody that's definitely not like you. That can last.
So thank you all for coming. Thank you for learning together today. Next week, Parshat Ki Tavo. I did send a schedule out last week of our last couple. We are going to have to double up a couple times to be able to finish and start something new at Simcha after Simchat Torah. But in the meantime, if you want to think about what you might want to learn next, feel free to send me some suggestions or ideas if you have ideas of what else you might want to learn. Thank you all very much. And as Barbara and Eddie said, go do good. Go help someone today. Be good. Be well, everybody. Take care. And if I don't see you before then, Shabbat Shalom.